Hi everybody, this is Peter from Your Daily Awakening here. Namaste. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about indigos and the Grateful Dead and LSD and fish and DMT a little bit. Indigos are very high vibrational people that are incarnated on this planet right now to basically help Earth and all of humanity through this shift that we're going through. And kind of the idea is that Earth goes through these ascension cycles every about 26,000 years, and normally everything just kind of rolls along okay, but as this cycle was approaching, basically there was too much darkness and density on Earth for it to be able to kind of move into a lighter, more etheric state, for Earth to shift into Gaia. And so basically what happened is that the call went out that Earth was basically not going to make this shift very successfully, and it's why you've heard of so much related to kind of death and destruction around things like 2012, and because one possible timeline was that we weren't going to make this shift very easily, and that we were going to kind of head downhill into more darkness and density, and that we needed a lot of help to be basically pulling ourselves up and out of that dark density. And so the idea that you can't really pull something up in frequency by just adding more of the same frequency beings. And so that basically the call went out for volunteers to be coming and incarnating on Earth to help raise the frequency. And this is related a lot to the idea that free will is totally honored within this universe at all levels, and you can't just kind of swoop in and kind of fix something from the outside, because you're kind of breaking laws of free will within the universe. So the only way for us to be raising frequency on this Earth was to get people to come incarnate here. And when we talk about indigos, there's kind of a lot of things. Two of the most important factors are have to do a little bit with with your aura, and people kind of have auric fields around them, and that people who are able to see those clairvoyantly see colors within those auric fields, from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And the lower vibrating, the slower, lower density colors are colors like red. And there's a reason that we associate the color red with things like anger and hate and jealousy, because those are low vibrating, low density emotions, and so they correspond to a low vibrating, low frequency color that we call red. And then as you're moving up in vibration, you're getting into realms of joy and peace and unconditional love, that those resonate with very high vibrational colors. And indigo is a very high vibrational color. It's even above red, orange, yellow, green, blue, which are kind of the basic primary colors. And I read a story one time about a girl who could see auras from a very young age, and her parents used to always tell stories about how she would kind of like tug on their shirt sleeves, and she would be like, "Mommy, like, are the red people or are the blue people coming over tonight?" Because she would sense basically the energies and the colors within their auras very clearly from a very early age. And indigos tend to be born with a lot of indigo, in their auric field, which means we just naturally kind of have a higher vibrational way of being. And another key thing about the indigos is that we literally have bigger DNA templates to be activating, basically meaning that we have a higher potential that we can be starting to activate ourselves through DNA work. People that just have the normal 12-strand template, as you begin accessing DNA work, very often actually develop DNA templates. So it's basically as you open yourself up to any sort of kind of indigo energy, you yourself will be infused and start to change towards that type of energy. You just have to make a conscious decision that this is something that you're kind of a part of and want to be a part of, and open yourself up, and you will develop bigger DNA templates if you're willing to get into this work. So there's been a couple big waves of indigos on this planet, and one of them was right after World War II ended, in kind of the mid to late 40s, and those are what we call the first wave of volunteers here. The second wave was kind of in the late 70s, early to mid 80s. There was another big influx. There was also another big influx in around 2000. But I kind of want to back up, to the first wave because, there's very kind of clear signals for when these waves hit. And, all those people that were born, after World War II, this first wave of Indigos, well, what happened from that was basically the whole love hippie movement, right? Where all of a sudden, these little blips of unconditional love start like popping out in the culture, from these early Indigos. And then, very concretely, that there's things like, LSD and the Grateful Dead are very closely connected to that first wave of Indigos. And that, the idea that, LSD is a tool that popped up and was given to, that early wave of Indigos to help them start to break through. Grateful Dead concerts are a place where, massive amounts of these Indigos, these very high frequency people that, their heads are kind of like in the stars a little bit, right? That they're incarnating with really kind of high frequency gifts and missions here. And so they're all going and eating LSD and going to Grateful Dead concerts, and like you break through for a couple hours. And, anybody that's kind of gone and experienced, music on that level with kind of psychotropic drugs opening people up, has experienced the real magic that goes on there, and there's something real, people didn't like drop out of work and go on tour with the Grateful Dead because it was like okay. People were finding like the most magical sacred places they've ever found on this earth. So this first wave of Indigos gets LSD and they get the Grateful Dead and they start to break through, right? And they start to have these things and develop this whole hippie movement and unconditional love. The second wave of Indigos came in kind of the late 70s to kind of the mid 80s. And I'm careful here that if you weren't born in this time, it doesn't necessarily mean you're definitely not an Indigo. It just means that there were big influxes during that time. And the other thing I should maybe talk about here too is that there's a lot of Indigos on this planet. It's not like some thing where it's like there's like one Indigo in like every city. Me and most of my friends that are going to fish shows and doing all this stuff and having these breakthroughs, all are wrapped up in the Indigo scene. And I guess I want to be careful that as I'm talking about these high frequency kind of helpful people that are here, that I'm not isolating myself up in some tower and that everybody else is kind of like down below, that there are just gobs of Indigos on this planet right now, and we're doing a really wonderful job, raising the frequency, to help us through this shift, and that, the more we get awake and basically tuned up through DNA activation, the more frequency holders we will have for the the peaceful new earth. And this my DNA work is designed very specifically to help a lot of Indigos. Again, it doesn't mean that it's not that non-Indigos can't access this work. It's just as good for everybody, but there's a certain frequency that some people are bringing here that they're all kind of blocked up and they're not able to peacefully allow their missions and their gifts to unfold here, and that going through this work of clearing yourself out and starting to activate you, really gets everybody kind of back to what their missions and gifts were here, and it's very helpful to get all of the Indigos, and that there's actually a direct number, 144,000 Indigos that we have incarnated to help, and that we have a lot more at this point, but that was kind of the number that that we first started with for how many we were going to need basically activated and awake to help this shift peacefully go through. And that, so I'm part of, the second wave of Indigos. And, so what me and all my friends have done is we've had a band called Fish. And, I can't tell you how important that band has been in my life and my spiritual progression. And that, I had a, when I was pretty young, I was like 16 years old, I basically kind of, I took too much LSD, and, I basically kind of had an out-of-body experience at a fish show where I was basically, floating up above the entire stadium, and like, all these things were like coming really clear to me, and then I heard this voice, and I now understand it as my higher self, was communicating with me, but what it said to me is that you don't ever need to go to a math and science class again. Right, you can just like get on with your mission, and I just finished my degree in physics, math and science. I still teach around here, even I still tutor some kids privately, in math here, and what I understood that as for a long time was that was that I was supposed to be doing music, right? And, you know, music was at a concert, and it was where I kind of got wrapped up in this. And, you know, my understanding and relationship with music is very intense and very deep and personal. And, you know, so I threw myself into music for a very long time, you know, when I was living out in New Hampshire, going to UNH, and then, you know, after graduating in 2004 from UNH, you know, I was working at a high school around there, but also playing in a band, and you know, really throwing my kind of heart and soul into music. And, you know, then I moved out to Portland here, and, you know, I got into a physics program, and then literally, you know, probably about a month after I graduated from my program, I started training to do this DNA work, and you know, very quickly found that this is what that experience was always talking about. You know, it took me 10 years to figure it out, though. You know, to figure out that, you know, when they were saying you don't have to do math and science, you can just be going on your mission, that it was actually, you know, DNA work that I'm here to do and to spread and to help, you know, this planet with. But that, you know, Fish, again, is the band for the second wave of Indigos, right? And that, you know, people that are drawn to Fish are these people that, you know, again, go use psychedelic drugs and go break through to very high level soul, higher self type experiences. And, you know, it's really amazing when you get, you know, 10,000 people all in a room, you know, all with very, you know, expanded minds, and they're all focused on basically a spiritual, sacred connection relationship that's going on with the music and the band and themselves. You know, really amazing, life-changing things happen. And, you know, again, these people that are, you know, on tour with Fish and going all over, you know, they're not doing it because, like, it's kind of okay and they, like, drink a beer and they, like, kind of have a good time. You know, these are people that go have very sacred spiritual experiences at these shows. And, you know, that, you know, the Grateful Dead was there for that first wave of Indigos, and Fish has been here for that second wave of Indigos. And, you know, another thing that's been here for the second wave of Indigo that's really interesting, you know, is a drug called DMT. DMT is very helpful for blowing the lid off this place. If you need your mind expanded really quickly to allow yourself access to things that, you know, aren't very physical, you know, DMT is a great, really quick way to basically access other dimensional entities and places. And, you know, that there's a reason that, you know, DMT has been flooding, you know, the U.S. I would say in the past, you know, at least in my experience, maybe 5 to 8 years or so. And, you know, I mean, DMT is so popular at this point that you can go on Netflix and literally go to the documentaries, and there's a thing just called DMT, the spirit molecule, that it's, you know, it's so available in the public American, you know, understanding and concept of the psychedelic world that, you know, it's really amazing how quickly that one came into our worlds. And, you know, with, you know, things like LSD and DMT, you know, they're very useful for cracking your head open. If you need your head cracked open, they're great for that. You know, I haven't found DMT to be that wonderful for healing, just because it's so quick. You know, that, you know, you can go down to the Amazon and, you know, go to Peru and find shamans and, you know, participate in ayahuasca ceremonies, which are, you know, an extended form of a DMT trip where you're kind of being led by a shaman, which I would highly advise if you're going to be doing something like ayahuasca. But that, you know, things like DMT, that there's not enough time, it seemed like, for a lot of healing. There's a lot of time to get your head really cracked open. DMT, again, is a gift here for this second wave of Indigos to be able to be breaking through to even higher levels. I guess I want to be careful here, too, that, you know, I'm not an advocate of drug use at this point in my life. You know, I have used psychedelic drugs, and they have helped me for a lot of my life and been invaluable in teaching me certain lessons. You know, there's a certain point, though, when you start to connect to higher self and clear your light body out, and you start to activate DNA from your higher self, you know, you know, I would say, you know, DMT will tap you into basically 4th and 5th and 6th dimensional type of consciousness. And that's where you'll find kind of the astral realms. You find a whole gobload of beings there, basically. You know, it's why people who do DMT, you know, report, you know, encountering all these beings during their experiences. But that, you know, when you start bringing in, you know, light codes from, you know, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th dimensional consciousnesses, you're basically bypassing that whole grimy world of kind of psychedelic madness, and you're bypassing it, basically into a really stable 12th dimensional frequency instead of, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And, that DNA work is such a safer, more complete way to be creating and accessing, connections between you and your higher self. And, that's what everybody's experiencing. You go eat a bunch of mushrooms and, like, all of a sudden, you have these feelings of, like, great peace and understanding and compassion. And, those are all very real things. But that, we're at a time now on Earth where, drugs aren't needed anymore. That we can simply be accessing this stuff sober. And, I always joke around that drugs are so 2011. If you're really serious about starting to shift with this planet, through this shift, that switch away from psychedelics, into basically light codes is going to be a huge one. And, is one that has been met with a little bit of resistance because, I have so many friends that, the way they've known to break through is to go eat gobs of LSD and go to a fish show or something, and then, and then here we are, 12 years later, flying all over the country to go experience 3 hours of that higher self type experience, because they're such powerful experiences. And that, this shift in understanding that we no longer need psychedelics to be achieving very high states of consciousness is going to be a huge one in terms of helping this shift all come together. And I guess I just hope that this video finds some indigos and whoever that have had experiences of breaking through with psychedelics, that can maybe start to understand and integrate this work, and then start to access this work in very concrete ways. Is going to be just enormously important throughout this shift. And that I hope that this video help some people come to that, and help some people access some DNA work. And again, that if you don't resonate with me, my advice would be find somebody else you do resonate with. Find another DNA facilitator that you do. And I don't care if you come work with me. There are plenty of people that need this work. And if I'm not your guy, then I'm not your guy. Then somebody else will be. But my advice would be to start taking this pretty seriously and start to invest your time and money and self into this process, rather than investing it, into, psychedelic hoobie-jooby, basically. Because this is here, this is real, this is on this planet, and this is kind of the next steps that we're going to be accessing. And so thanks for your time. Namaste, and big love.